How did C2C's recruiting team accurately rank three-star studs Quinshon Judkins, Damian Martinez, and Ashton Jeanty as freshmen? How did we know how to be bearish on year 1 0 wide receivers? We reveal some of the recruiting team's secret sauce this week on The Official. All right, everybody. We got everybody here. It's been 6 weeks or so, but glad to have the crew back to talk about, what we do as a group. So this is going to be a bit of a level set episode. I kind of think of it as setting the stage for all the new listeners and viewers we picked up in the 2023 season when we were talking about the 2024 class, who most of them are actually on campus now. So we are officially flipping the calendar and going to start looking at the 2025 class as early as next week. But this week, we're going to just look at what do we do, kind of want to get y'all's thoughts on your visions of where we go going forward. I mean, we've done 3 full classes, I believe, under our belt now as The Official and evaluating them week in and week out. So it's been a while, but David and Matt, great to have you here. We'll just do the old classic, how's it going? Because I haven't talked to you guys in over a month or so.
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Yeah, it's going well. We had a nice little late push there to finish out the guide, which was a little bit stressful, but, got a few weeks off to sort of re-energize, and glad to be back on here with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will get to that freshman guide in a few minutes. First of all, I have to, shout out Home Field Apparel. If you've been watching this show for over a year now, you've probably heard me talk about them quite a bit. But they're our partners and really a perfect fit because they make amazing collegiate apparel. Any school from Colorado School of Mines to your Alabamas and your Georgias and everything in between. They've just got amazing kind of vintage looking outerwear. So they've got, hoodies, pants, but also your standard t-shirts and hats. Tons of good stuff there. Go check out homefieldapparel.com. And if it's your first purchase, you'll get 15% off just by entering campus number 2 Canton in the promo code. Additionally, of course, go check out campus2canton.com and do us a huge favor, like and subscribe to this YouTube channel so that we can get our viewership up, trying to get up over 3,000. I don't think we've hit it yet for subs, but that just really helps us out. It's a simple thing to do. And, hopefully you'll appreciate what we are bringing to you for the 2025 class. With that being said, I want to throw it to you guys. We're getting into the guide. We're going to get into some other stuff here in a minute. But, thinking through, been doing this for almost 3 years, I believe. And what are your overarching goals, for C2C's recruiting show, The Official, for our recruiting content, the stuff we put on the site? Like, why do you love recruiting? Why did you choose, to make this your niche within C2C? And, where do you see us going forward? David, I'll just throw it to you first and kind of open-ended.
Yeah, I mean, when I started out doing like NFL draft content, and C2C guys kind of came on my radar. I think at least for me, the most fun is like discovering players first and, finding new talent and, scouting guys earlier than everyone else and trying to project these guys, which is like it's a puzzle, a very difficult puzzle, and it's a big challenge, but it's a lot of fun. And I think we learn something new we learn a ton of stuff every year. So in quite the learning curve. But I feel like a lot of people that get into C2C just enjoy scouting in general, at least. That's my feeling. I assume a lot of our listeners, are scouting themselves, and we're kind of just like, I think we're all in this together. I feel like we're all just kind of spitballing and throwing out ideas and theories and stuff like that and testing stuff. And that's kind of what I like to do, basically.
Great answer. I mean, it's definitely, when we started this, I think we kind of realized like, hey, this is kind of the wild, wild west. We can do whatever we want. And there's a lot of I think, areas for improvement. I mean, when your number one recruiting site is 50-50 on year one zeros for their top 10 receivers, like that means there's, it's very hard, but there's got to be a way to kind of improve and chip away at some things. And I think we've done that to an extent. Of course, we have our misses as well. Matt, same question over to you.
Yeah, so like David, I also came from the NFL draft side of things. I was always a massive fan of it, pretty much my whole teenage years. And I would echo pretty much everything David said. I think something that we strive to do at least is kind of be unique in our process, both in the flexibility of what we do and learning to adapt, and also just trying out so many new things like the different models, mile per hour times, ball velocities, things like that I think could give us a decent edge over others evaluating. So I think that's kind of a key part of what we do and kind of makes what our content a bit more unique in several aspects.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love it. Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself. And I'm so, so lucky to have two guys who just grind and are innovative and try new stuff, throw things up against the wall, see if they stick. I think we've really done some nice things here with the recruiting team, with our rankings, and the way that we approach this. And I think we're helping C2C players and Devy players even to identify the freshmen as they come in to get on their teams as early as possible. Because as we know, the value rises the most with these young players. You draft a freshman, by next year, he could be the number one overall Devy pick, but you got him in the third or fourth round, before, they hit the field. So awesome stuff, guys. And yeah, once again, I'm just everything you bring to the table, all your different thinking about all this stuff, and it's just invaluable for all of us. So I really appreciate that. And next, let's talk about this guide that we've been teasing now for a long time. It is officially available on campus2canton.com. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, dudes, but I think that this is like one of the unique things that we can offer. I don't think there's anything else like it available on the market. Sure, you can go to 24/7 Sports, you can go to On3, you can go to Rivals, you can look at their website. But in terms of a comprehensive guide to freshmen for fantasy purposes, with in-depth narrative player capsules, as well as data and metrics all together, I don't think there's anything like this that exists in the world, which is very weird to say. There's always something that you can find that's comparable, but I don't think that's the case. So I'm going to pull up here the freshman guide, the 2024 edition. This is available for, oh man, this is terrible. I think it's $19.99 on the website if you just want to buy this, but you also can get certain packages where this will be thrown in if you get a membership. You can buy it just in and of itself as a PDF. It's 208 pages of freshmen. I mean, like, it's so much information in here. But a couple of things that are interesting are the way it's laid out. You're going to get your tiers for your quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. And these are in order of ranking as well, but also we kind of group them as tiers. So you can evaluate when you're drafting, whatever, that, okay, I missed out on the number 5, Luke Kromanoic, but Ethan Gruckmeyer, Aaron Nolan, similar tier, and feel okay about where you are in your freshman drafts. I also really like that we do this 23 and 2024 comparisons. And you can see, the top end of the quarterback class was much more rich in 2023 with 3 guys who made tier 1. This year, just Dylan Raiola. But the second tier was a little thicker in 2024. So, I think that's nice as we go through the years to see how last year sets up to this year. And you can start thinking about your draft strategy. And as we all know, that's important to know where the talent is, thick or thin in any given class. And then, of course, just to look at the actual layout, what we're going to give you in this guide is obviously height and weight. That's basic. Position rank, class rank. We're also going to throw in the grade that we will talk about in a little bit, how we arrive at these grades. But each player is going to come with a grade. An athletic comp, we'll show you how we get that as well later in the show. the max velocity for quarterbacks. Now, I'm going to throw it to Matt here in a minute to talk about max velocity in miles per hour, but also a full narrative capsule. And this is going to go into like the history of their recruiting, the cycle changes as the year went on, depth chart considerations, coaching, offensive scheme, how they're going to fit. A whole bevy of information that you can't get from pure stats is going into this narrative that every single player has a full write-up. You will not find that on 24/7 Sports on 3 anywhere else. That is only here where we have really taken the time to write out our thoughts on these players. And then, of course, you've got the depth chart, position specific, to see kind of where these freshmen may start on the opening depth charts. I think it's just totally unique. We'll also skip down to the supplemental draft. Oh, man, it's so far down. But the supplemental portion of the guide is going to be players who are, I believe, rostered less than 10% on Fantrax. So guys who should be readily available, who are already in college, but may have a role in college fantasy for the very next year. And so that is that's the guide pretty much. Now, Matt, can you tell us how you get max miles per hour? Another thing you're not going to find in a whole lot of places. And another, something I don't think you'll find anywhere else is the max velocity for quarterback, arm talent, basically.
Yeah. So first, I should probably emphasize that they are approximate. I mean, we don't have GPS trackers on these balls. We are doing this through going frame by frame on video and just lining things up. So with miles per hour time, we have to look for long runs, obviously, like 40-ish yards, 40 plus yards, or they're hitting top speed. And then we measure that in a 10-yard interval, how far they get across that 10 yards, and then we convert that to miles per hour. It's pretty straightforward process with that one. Ball velocity, a little bit more difficult. We do, go frame by frame with that as well. With that, it requires a plotting image, basically, a model field on a program that's actually measured out. And then you can mark where the quarterback threw the ball and where the receiver caught the ball and take the time from that, and you get the exact length. So it's approximate, but comparing them to the combine mile per hour times that came out, they're pretty close. I was a little bit too conservative on all of them, but they're all about 3 miles per hour off the combine results, which I thought was pretty good. And I've since adjusted the process a little bit to account for that, it being a bit too conservative.
That's great. I think a laser time at the combine you would imagine be more accurate. But honestly, if it's a consistent process, at least even if they were off the raw value of the combine, still relative to the rest of class, I still think it would be very helpful to know who's got the strongest in a given class. And we do have that as well in the guide. At the end, there is a table of quarterback velocities. You can see who's got the strongest arm in the class and who's got kind of a noodle, as David loves to say. But I do think that's really valuable because tape lies. Like some guys look like, I think that arm's pretty good. The highlights you come across or the angle that the film is, but sometimes you're surprised when you see what the actual number is. And it really helps you understand what's going on, as we know that high school tape is not the best way, but it's all we have. All right. So I think switching gears now to a couple things we have online. Again, this is kind of a level set. If you've been following us for a little bit or a long bit, it's kind of a show to remind you of all of the tools and things you have available on campus to Canton, and also what you can expect going forward in the year. And as next week, we'll start getting into the actual player names for that next class. But I'm going to pull up here the actual recruiting rankings page. And, David, if you want to kind of just talk through a little bit, it's pretty straightforward, but like, what's the adjusted grade versus the average grade? I guess, start there.
Yeah. So the average grade is just all of us collectively. You can see, I believe it's the whole team, but yeah, you can pick guys individually as well, but it's just our average grade all together. With the grading scale we use, and then adjustment just means for positional importance or whatever. Like QBs get like a bump up typically. No one seems to care about tight ends except for me. I'm actually
I
considering.
do. Chris
Okay,
Moxley
you like tight
does.
ends, dude. I love tight ends. No one. Okay, it's just two of us and Moxley. But they get demoted a little bit. So that's what the adjustment is, and then you can kind of sort it and kind of rank them all together.
Yeah, so he's talking about sorting here. Like you can, so this is all together, but if you really didn't care about QB, I'm just only worried about running back receiver, you can unselect QB and you'll just get a ranking of receivers and running backs and tight ends. But like David said, those are going to be buried a little bit further down the list. You can also uncheck everything and just see quarterbacks only. And so there's some functionality there that you can do. No surprise, Dylan Rayola Lagway saying top 3. And then if you wanted to say, well, I only care about David's evaluation of the QBs, you can just select David and it'll only give you his rankings here. But we have them, everyone's unselected so that it's just taking everyone into account as the default. And yeah, so I mean, recruiting rankings, that's there. We should have the first set. I think our target is going to be May, because we're going to take some time to start, or actually, no, we're going to probably not even have these guys out. I think we decided the fall. So we're going to spend summer doing our first evaluations. We may actually tweak a little bit of our grading scale. And then in the fall, you'll start seeing the first iterations of these recruiting rankings coming out. Another fun thing that's recruiting specific, I guess it's not recruiting specific, but we do have recruits baked into the Prospect Athletic Comparison tool. Matt, you, I believe, are kind of the engineer behind this whole thing. And I know you and David, I think both have entered countless data of players and things from years and years and years ago. What's the total in terms of player line items with all this information that you have up to in the whole database?
It's over 6,000.
So crazy. All right, so we got over 6,000 players and their historical testing numbers, height, weight, other things. And then you can put in a guy as well. The default is Calvin Johnson because he's the freak of freaks. And you can just see here, you put in Calvin Johnson, you've got his most likely comp was Vincent Jackson, who also haven't had a pretty good NFL career. DK Metcalf doing okay for himself. Tyrone Calico, RIP, man. I mean, he's still alive, I think, as a human being, but like RIP is prospect status. He was so exciting, never did anything. But then you got Julio Jones. I mean, some of the best receivers of all time are sitting in here as comps. But before we go further, Matt, can you tell us like what is the athlete overall speed, burst, agility, and power? And I have, I think you had some screenshots up to help look.
Yeah, it would be easier if you brought the screenshots up. So basically, you can see on the previous page they had the 4 categories: speed, burst, power, agility. And each of those, so for example, the speed bucket, miles per hour, 40-yard dash, 55 meter, 60 meter, 100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter. We take basically every athletic testing event that we can find in that category, and then we find how what that number's percentile is compared to all the other players in the database. And then for each of those categories, we'll use the highest percentile to represent that score for the player. So this might be a bad example. Flip to the next guy.
Reiner Swanson or Terry Bussey?
Yeah, let's go with Bussey.
Okay.
So in the speed category, you see miles per hour is only 57th percentile, 40-yard dash, 92nd percentile. So in this case, the 40-yard dash's percentile would override the slower miles per hour, and that would be his speed score for what's displayed on the site's comparison section.
Okay.
So, and just for audio listeners, I can read more of these out. But basically, we take into account all combine style testing, all track and field event. Well, not all track and field, but ones that we've deemed relevant enough for football players that they regularly participate in. And then weight room numbers outside of just, the combine style 225 reps. And miles per hour time is baked in there. The amount of sports a player has participated in is also baked in there because we like these multi-sport guys, and in our modeling, they've come up to be pretty important. So I think that's kind of another thing that makes our athleticism score a bit more unique. And then the ball velocity for quarterbacks as well.
Yeah, we can look at DJ Lagway in here, 55.2 ball velocity. But yeah, some of these. So we don't. And if you're not, if you're not watching on YouTube, first of all, you should. But if you're listening on podcasts, like not every number is filled in for every guy. These two, David and Matt, are going to find as much as they possibly can. Sometimes you just can't find numbers, or they're not participating in some of these events. But yeah, you've got your size, 3-cone agility shuttle for or 3-cone and shuttle for agility. Speed, I think Matt went through it all. Burst are going to be some of your jumps, all the different possible jumps in like track and field and things like that, whoever has a number there. And then power is obviously a lot of like more weightlifting type events. And we're getting these from all over, but trying to get verified numbers and plugging them in and doing our best to count these athletic comps, which is very fun. So David, give me a name, a guy who's still in college, a known name, maybe in his third year or maybe going into senior year, or maybe a rookie, an NFL rookie going into the rookie class who just finished college. And we'll see what our comp said he was and if it was close in college.
All right, let's just go with Evan Stewart. He's on my mind right now.
Yeah. So. Evan Stewart, still listed at Texas A&M. We'll have to update that soon. But you just plug a guy in here, and we will do a recruit or two because those are in the database, and that's really helpful when you're doing your recruiting rankings and stuff. But even if you're a Devy player, even if you're a Dynasty player, this is still valuable. And so what do we have? Don Beebe from like the 80s. That's pretty – I mean, that's how far back you guys have gone with things like that. Emmanuel Sanders, not bad. Santonio Holmes, good player. Devin Hester, best punt returner of all time. Bo Melton made some noise here. Zachariah Branch, 5-star guy. But, I think his height and weight probably holding him back a touch in terms of some of these comps. But like Emmanuel Sanders, great career. Santonio Holmes is a multi-year 1,000-yard receiver, I'm pretty sure, for Seattle, the Steelers. So, that's not bad. That's not bad. Although it is interesting looking at that and saying like some people might even have him as like Devy wide receiver 1 due to his height and weight. Maybe that's a little bit overzealous when you start looking at the mold he fits here. But I love Evan Stewart. Matt, you want to throw a name out? Do you have anyone in mind?
You can do Riley Leonard. I was just looking at him the other day.
Riley Leonard, QB. So these are athleticism comps. QB is probably the hardest translation with athleticism because a lot of it obviously is mental and processing. That does not get baked into this, but could be fun to see. Let's see. Ryan Tannehill, first-round pick, and he was very athletic. Trey Lance, first-round pick. Obviously, we know he was very athletic, even though he hasn't done a whole lot. Marcus Mariota, Colin Kaepernick, Daniel Jones. I mean, these are some successful NFL players who had that dual threat ability even in the NFL. That checks out to me.
Yeah, so some people might be confused like how that comes out to 92nd percentile just based off of the bars. So we kind of went over it, but like ball velocity, which isn't shown on here, is taken into account, and then multi-sport is taken into account, which isn't shown, and he's like a 5-sport athlete. So the model is going to love a 5-sport athlete for sure. So, and his ball velocity is like adequate, I suppose, but I think it's like 53 or something like that. It's all right. Okay. But yeah, that's just kind of when you look at the bars, maybe it doesn't exactly pop, but 92nd percentile, very good.
That's awesome. I mean, great call out there. Actually, yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's great for our listeners. I'm going to go with a guy who is being talked about as a major draft pick, first rounder, Rome Odunze. Who's kind of polarizing, I think, in the Dynasty Devy world as well. But, he's a bigger receiver. He kind of does profile as that X potential. And his numbers look incredible in terms of as an athlete. And we've got Braylon Edwards, Marvin Harrison Jr. People are going to freak out if they ever see that. But then you have Denzel Mims. Allen Robinson is very good. Julio Jones shows up near the end here. Pretty interesting profile. I mean, he is that Uber X type body and athleticism, but receivers are tough because there's nuance in there that you have to have. So it's basically like it's almost binary. You're either going to be a stud or you're going to bust. Like that seems to be the case with these like X profiles to me. But I think that's pretty fun. I use this for running backs. It's super helpful because you can really get it. I mean, I think athleticism as a running back is just the most important thing. But this is very fun. Play around with it. Part of your subscription if you go to campus2canton.com. Let's throw in a current prospect just so people can get a sense of, there's never too soon to look at these comps. Why don't we just do Jeremiah Smith? I mean, why not start at the top? Jeremiah, there's a lot of Jeremiahs. Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State. And this should be pretty impressive. I wonder if Marvin Harrison actually pops up as a comp, because I think he's pretty freaky. And Marvin Harrison made the freak list. Oh, Aaron Dobson. I did like him coming out, man. He never did anything for the Patriots. Jordy Nelson, pretty awesome. Josh Gordon. Okay. Larry Fitzgerald. Demaryius Thomas. That's fun. That's pretty freaking impressive right there. Marvick McNutt. I feel like he got injured. He was always a guy like on the Devy radar. People were always like, it's his year. Never actually did it though. All right. So that's pretty fun. I'll stop sharing for a minute here. And then this actually took longer than I thought. We are all the way almost at 30 minutes, but I still think it would be fun here to talk about our grading system pretty quickly. I guess we'll go through it quickly, but when we rank prospects, which goes into the grading, which goes into the rankings, we do a bunch of different categories, probably close to 10 to 12 for each position, and then each category gets a number. We add those together and put that total as a ratio of the total possible, and then you get the grade. So if a guy's like 85, he's got 85% of the total possible points awarded. If a guy was a 1-0, he'd be a perfect prospect in every single category. We've never even come close. I think you had the best rating, Matt, this year, right? Hudson, he was like an 85.
Yeah, somewhere around there. But yeah, I think that's our highest rated guy in the last 3 classes.
Yeah, so 80 plus is a tier 1. We've never even scratched a 90, probably never will, but it's, I guess, theoretically possible. And just for brevity here, I'm going to read off the criteria so our listeners know what is going into these rankings when they're looking at our content, consuming our content. How are you arriving at this? And then I'm going to ask each one of you your favorite criteria to grade, most fun, most challenging, however you want to define favorite. And we'll just do that for each one real quick and then close it out. But QB, we look at processing, eyes downfield, boldness and aggression with his throws, mechanics, arm strength, accuracy, placement, release, scramble ability, overall speed, physicality, size, program prestige for once they are committed or signed, and then the depth chart at that particular program in terms of likely early playing ability. So, David, for QBs, what's your favorite thing to look at?
Favorite thing to look at is probably arm strength. No, I don't know. I just I just think it's so cool what Matt does with the ball velocity, and that's a big part of it. And obviously, I'm looking for opposite hash throws and stuff like that, and line drives like that. So it's just fun because I mean everyone wants to evaluate a hose and stuff, and I enjoy that part.
Yeah, that's good. All right, Matt, what's your favorite part of the QBs?
I guess placement. I don't know. I think it's kind of just a hard question in general because it's kind of just all part of the process, everything.
Yeah. That placement's tough for me. I'm kind of like, what am I looking at? Sometimes you can't even tell on some of the tape exactly where the ball, when you get real granular with it. But all right, so that's QBs. For running backs, we look at footwork, contact, balance, vision, change of direction, burst, long speed, acceleration, body control, weight, the program prestige again, depth chart, and competitiveness, in addition to adding some stuff in the receiving game, hands, route versatility, and work beyond the line of scrimmage. So guys will get kind of bonuses if they're doing advanced stuff rather than just catching a swing pass. David, I'll change it up. What's the most difficult thing for you to evaluate with these running backs?
Probably vision for me. I don't know, when you're watching, just like I actually watch like full games and stuff. I don't just watch highlights, but especially with highlights, I don't know exactly what people's process is for going through the vision part of it. So I usually watch like full games. It just takes me a while to get a feel for somebody, and it's just I don't feel 100% comfortable with it, because it's like, all right, like, is he just running the play, following the block, stuff like that. I guess that's part of it. Some of it's like obvious, like if he's just like running into his own lineman and stuff, like there's some obvious like defaults in vision. But that's probably one of the more challenging ones for me.
Yeah. Matt, you have anything you hate evaluating for running backs?
I'll just mirror what Dave said. I mean, vision is by far the most difficult, especially when you don't have access to full game tape on somebody.
Yeah.
It's just because it's much more of a subjective thing. Like there's multiple options that could be the correct answer at times. So, it really just takes a feel for getting to know that running back a lot on full game tape, which, if we're grading 100+ guys, isn't normally very feasible to do it on that grand of a level.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there too. And part of it, I played football, but not really beyond early high school. And some of it's like you got to understand what the play is, what the blocking should be, or what the blocking is, and what the running back should react to that blocking. I think you really need to know a lot about football context to really evaluate that well. Probably beyond my understanding of some of the nuances of like line movement and catching blocks and things like that. So I would agree that's probably one of the harder things for me as well. Wide receiver and tight end, we look at similar stuff. Tight end, you can throw in blocking and pull out versatility, but otherwise they're pretty much all the same. Hands for receivers, obviously, catch point, flexibility, catch radius, versatility, yards after catch, footwork, play strength, route deception, burst, long speed, acceleration, body control, size, return ability. We love that. Program prestige, depth chart, and competitiveness. Very similar for tight ends, with the difference I mentioned before. We are going to take into account blocking for tight ends. And we don't look at versatility as its own category, because receivers, you're looking at like, do they take jet sweeps, special teams contributions, things like that. Same question. We'll just wrap it up here. Is there anything I think real receivers are very fun in general, but I find them very difficult to nail down who's actually good at receiver. David, like, what's your favorite thing to look at with these guys?
I think it's slowly becoming versatility, actually, because it really gets me thinking about the mold of a receiver and how they're used, where they win on the field. Can we expect them to be a high volume player going forward? So that's probably the one category that makes me think the most about what they can provide for an offense.
Yeah, I think so too. Matt, anything to say about any of these criteria for wide receiver? Favorite, least favorite, whatever you choose.
We definitely shouldn't be grading size. That's definitely a gripe of mine, but
fair enough.
That's probably my least favorite.
Okay. And that is the foreshadowing as well. We are probably going to be tweaking some of this in the next few months before we really unveil in the fall. So like we did this last year as well. We put our heads together. We kind of changed up a little bit. Every year we're going to try to refine it a little bit more. But for the most part, it'll probably stay similar. We may change slightly how it gets weighted, slightly how the final number, we get to the final number, and may take out or add or tweak some of the categories. But otherwise, that's really, we're baking a lot of things in there. So just so you guys know, when you see these final scores, these final grades, there's a lot that has gone in, and we try to make it as, uniform and objective as possible, with still leaving room for subjective evaluation, because I do think that nuance and that gut feeling is important as well. So it's kind of a mix there. We're trying to play around with the right mix. The last thing I wanted to mention is just ADP. We do have a section of ADP on the website, and that will start coming into like C2C ADP and things like that as freshmen start to get drafted throughout the summertime during mocks and other things. So that will come in time. And then finally, before we close out, I just wanted to give everyone a what to expect. We're going to change up slightly how we go through the year, kind of thinking through this whole cycle as a year-long process instead of a week-to-week process. And so what we're going to do is, one new thing is for the YouTube content, we're going to divide the big show into 3 different shows. We'll still record on one day, but we're going to divide into 3 shorter YouTube segments released throughout the week. We're going to look at 1 player on each one of those segments, so 3 players per week throughout the summertime, basically taking it from the top down to probably the top 50, 60 recruits in the country per 24/7 or on 3. I don't know if we've decided exactly that yet, but basically systematically going through these top recruits, talking about them each week, and really giving each player their own little spotlight for 10 minutes each or so. The podcast will still be released once a week, though, as a giant 30-minute plus episode. And then in the fall and winter, we're going to switch to kind of what we did last year with a little tweaks, but 2 in-season, like how the teams are doing, how the players are doing, updates throughout the season. That's 2 per month, 1 ranking update per month, and 1 mock draft per month. And that's kind of the backbone of what this show is going to be going forward. So you can know what to expect. I still think we're going to have great shows for you. And then at some point, we'll start baking in and folding in like the deeper sleepers, the G5. You're still going to get all of that probably later in the cycle, though. And then special episodes as they come up, things like that. So, and we'll probably also take a break, because there's a lot of content that goes into these shows. And, January, February is a good time to kind of take a breather and then restart in March like we did this year. So that's kind of what to expect going forward. Guys, I'm excited to embark on the 2025 class with you. I think we have some really exciting top-end talent with Julian Lewis going into this next 2025 class. I think we've got a handful of quarterbacks again to be very excited about. And then I know that you guys have already said there's a running back in here who would have been better than anyone in the last 2 classes and things like that. So we got some firepower in the 2025 class. I look forward to looking at it with you. Thanks for being back. Thanks for doing this with me. And this has been the official. Go check out campus2canton.com. We'll see you next week.